Okay, so once your brainstorming and planning chart is done, we now need to actually turn this into an essay. Okay, so each character trait will be a separate paragraph. So you can have 3 paragraphs, okay, one for each character trait, and they will be organized in a similar way. Although we should try and vary up the order of our words or transition words that we're using in the different paragraphs. So if we look at this chart, you'll notice first trait is determination. I have character 1 and character 2, and then I have a line, black line between that and paragraph and the second character trait, because this is going to be a paragraph. And then your second trait, this is going to be a paragraph. And then your third trait, this is going to be a paragraph. So 3 body paragraphs. There'll be 5 paragraphs total, because we'll add the introduction on the beginning and a conclusion on the end when we're done with our 3 body paragraphs. Again, we want to spend the most time on those. So what do? Well, the first thing we need to do is write a topic sentence. The topic sentence is, what is our paragraph about? Well, our paragraph is about how these 2 characters show the same character trait. So we want to mention the character trait, and we want to mention the 2 characters. So there are different ways to write it. There are many more than this. These are 2. A trait that is important for the quests of both Demeter and Daedalus is determination. I could also say determination. Put the trait first. Determination is an important trait for both Demeter and Daedalus during their quests. Or I could start with during their quests, Demeter and Daedalus both show determination. Okay, so the important thing is, however you write it, whatever order you write it in, you want to make sure that you are changing it from paragraph to paragraph. Each paragraph should not be exactly the same. That first sentence. This is the first sentence of your paragraph. Remember to indent your paragraph. Okay? So once we have that written, which is pretty standard on how you write a topic sentence, we need to add a transition word. Now this essay is a little different because you're combining 2 characters from different myths into the same paragraph. So transition words like next and then or second don't really work. It's not that type of order. So we're comparing how they're similar to each other. So words like for example or an example or for instance work. First works for the first character. It doesn't really work for your second character, okay? So, but other than that, you really wouldn't want to use any of the ones you normally use. You're really going to be looking to use these kinds of transitions. And then you're going to provide that first example. So you're going to provide this, right, when it's shown. This is the next sentence, sentence 2. So I give you an example. For example, Demeter shows she is determined when she searches for Persephone for 9 days. Okay? Now, I want you to note that I'm writing in present tense. That is the preferred way to write an essay like this, is in present tense. You have to write the whole thing in present tense, which means you also have to include your anchor. So the next thing is I want to include my quote, right? It is the next thing in my chart, right? My example, my quote. So I'm going to go to my myth. I'm going to find where I highlighted it. And I'm going to now type it into my essay with an anchor in front of it. The author writes, right? Notice there's a period in this sentence, and then this is capitalized. The author writes, or the author states that. If you're going to write your topic sentence in present tense, and you're going to write your example in present tense, you need to write your anchor in present tense. Okay? Then you're going to provide your quote, and then you're going to cite your quote with the author's last name and page number in parentheses following the quote. And I apparently misspelled that. There we go. Fixed. And then we want to go to the next box in our chart, which is how is this trait helpful or needed during the character's quest. If I go back, you'll notice I said that she learned what happened so she could try and get Persephone back. Notice I switched to past tense here. I want to make sure that I make it present tense when I write. So I did. Because Demeter is determined to find Persephone, she eventually learns what has happened to her daughter and is able to try and get her back. Okay, so keeping it all in present tense. You can write the whole thing in past tense, but then everything needs to be past tense, including your topic sentence. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Then we want to add a transition word that compares. So words that compare are transition words like similarly, likewise, in the same way, also. And again, each one of these would have a comma after it. And then we're going to provide that example for my second character. So in my chart, that was Daedalus figures out how to fly. That shows his determination. And so that's the next thing I'm going to write. Likewise, Daedalus demonstrates determination when he figures out how to fly off the island of Sicily with his son Icarus. Notice I added a few more words here, right? I added the location of Sicily. I added the name of his son, right? And so I added some more details. That is what I'm hoping you'll do, right? We want to keep the brainstorming short, but fill in the details when you're actually typing it out in your paragraph. Then we're going to introduce our quote. Again, if I look back, right, I was supposed to have highlighted a quote, put a Post-it note on it, and now I need to go to my myth, find that quote in the Flight of Icarus, where it talks about that, and type it into my essay. Okay, and I'm going to introduce that quote. The author writes or the author states that, and then the quote, I'm going to cite that quote with the author's last name and the page number in parentheses. Fix that. And then I'm going to explain. Okay, so that last box in this top section of my chart is this one right here, right? And it was the only way to get freedom, and it was his only hope. And so I'm going to make sure that I write it all in present tense. Without determination, Daedalus would have no hope of achieving his freedom from King Minos and his unjust imprisonment. Then I'm going to start a new paragraph. And I'm going to repeat all these steps, starting with my topic sentence for my second paragraph with the second character trait, adding my transition word, an example, or for instance, the example for my first character, my quote, explaining how it was helpful. In this case, my second character trait was creativity, and the transition word, a different one. If I use similarly, I used likewise, I might use similarly or in the same way. And then I provide the example for my second character, right? The quote, and then I explain how creativity helps Daedalus. And then I'm going to start a new paragraph and do the same thing for the last character trait, which was bravery. Okay, starting with a topic sentence for bravery. Okay, so what I did to sort of help you is you are free to number your brainstorming chart the same way I numbered it here. So I matched each box up to a number on the checklist, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Now the transition words aren't in our brainstorming sheet, right? So those are going to be added in. They're not found on your brainstorming chart. But anything that's on your brainstorming chart, I matched up with a number on this checklist. So, right, our topic sentence is 1, 1, and 1. Same for my second paragraph, 1, 1, and 1. And my third paragraph, bravery, Demeter, and Daedalus. And then the third step, the 4 through 6 is the quote. Step 7 was explain. Step 9 was an example for Daedalus. Steps 10 through 12 were the quote, and step 13 was explain. Okay, and then I would do the same for creativity. This is what I would be writing at each step. And then the same for bravery. This is what I would be writing at each step. All right, so hopefully this helps a little bit, this numbering. Each paragraph follows exactly the same pattern. That's why we make sure that we try and vary the transition words that we use, kind of the way we order things up. You know, on my two examples, I started this one with because, which is fine because she's determined, she eventually learns. It's a nice complete sentence. In this one, I started it without the character trait, what would have happened. So there's different ways of doing it so it doesn't become super repetitive. But it is pretty, you know, you're going to write things in a certain order because you are answering how these character traits were similar in the two characters, okay? Just a few reminders. The title of the myths go in quotation marks. They are not italicized. So the origin of the seasons, for example, here. And if you're quoting dialogue, make sure you put the entire quotation in double quotation marks at the beginning and the end. And then anywhere where you find double in the story, you make them single. Okay, but you always start with double and you always end with double. You can refer to your green notes in your binders for all the rules and examples if you need the help. Okay.